"Your table is ready," the hostess says, guiding me through a Manhattan Friday night. Soft jazz, polished glass, the performance of success. I chose this place for a reason. Lighting that flatters truth, acoustics that carry a sentence just far enough. Nathan is 5 minutes late, which is exactly how men who curate mystery enter a room. Dark coat, camera bag slung like a credential. He scans, sees me, composes a smile. His profile name was Ethan. His real name is not. "Julia?" he asks, careful, confident. "You look different from your photos." "I do," I say, standing. "Sit, Nathan. We have a lot to talk about." His shoulders stutter at the name. His eyes adjust. New York diners have a sixth sense for story. 2 tables glance over. I set my phone face up on the linen. On the screen, a neat grid of his aliases. Another folder, victims. Another, receipts. He reaches for the phone. I move it an inch, the way you close a deal, calmly, decisively. "Relax," I say. "We'll do this cleanly." 2 months earlier, I wasn't staging confrontations. I was staging brands. Julia Hart, 33, strategy director at a boutique consultancy on Madison. We rebuild reputations for a living, which is to say, I know what a story is, and I know when a story is doing more work than the person telling it. My last relationship ended with the most New York sentence possible. "It's not you, it's the city." I downloaded a dating app like booking a dental cleaning. Necessary, mildly threatening, easy to postpone. He found me. Ethan Cole. Black and white portraits, a Leica on his shoulder, European streets blurred into credibility. Bio line. I notice what other people miss. Of course he did. His first message wasn't a compliment. It was a diagnosis. "Your photos are underexposed by half a stop, but your eyes do the heavy lifting." Arrogant, accurate, oddly charming. We moved from app to text before my coffee cooled. He had the cadence of a man who's read without needing to perform it. Quoted Rilke without attribution, which is how I knew he actually reads Rilke. Said he split his time between Lisbon and Manhattan. Brand shoots, editorial for Soul, commercial for Rent. He didn't list clients, which made him more believable than the men who recite a resume like a prayer. "You sound like someone who built her own staircase," he wrote. I forgave the line because I recognized the architecture. We nearly met 3 times. His flight moved. A client emergency ate my Saturday. His cousin had a health scare. Missed moments curated into fate. He sent white ranunculus for my birthday with a note. "To the woman who refuses to be ordinary." I put them on my kitchen island and told myself not to fall in love with the idea of a person who was very good at creating ideas. He asked for help with his portfolio. "My site's slow. SEO's a mess." You live in that world. Men rarely ask professionally competent women for free labor. Performers posing as professionals do. He sent a domain. I tuned load time, alt text, metadata, compression. 40 minutes. An invisible gift to a man I'd not yet met. He called after midnight. Always midnight. Voice notes mostly. Video, when the connection was better. His camera never quite found his face. I filed that under modern shyness, the way you file a red flag when you want it to be a napkin. The first crack arrived disguised as flattery. A photographer friend DM'd me. "Wild to see Marco Vaz's look on your guy's homepage." I opened the site. The hero image. Alfama Blue Hour, the exact laddered flare you only get with Vaz's ancient glass. I texted Ethan. "Did you assist on that shoot? Your edit is similar." He responded immediately. "Lisbon's small. We trade files sometimes. Don't tell the purists." Possible, unlikely. I let it go. The human heart is a generous compliance officer. Then there were the calls. Midnight in Manhattan is 5 a.m. in Lisbon. He sounded awake in a way that felt wrong for sunrise. When I asked where he was exactly, the answer was poetic. between places. Poetic is useful when precise would be inconvenient. I don't argue with unease anymore. I trace it. He sent a behind-the-scenes still, studio cyclorama, apple box with a coffee cup, the harmless boredom of real work. I saved it to my desktop, not because I didn't trust him, because I trust patterns. The metadata said Manchester. The timestamp said mid-afternoon GMT. 5 minutes earlier, he'd texted me Lisbon sunset. Lisbon and Manchester share a time zone. Sunset wasn't 5 minutes after mid-afternoon. You know the sound a puzzle makes when one piece clicks, and you suddenly see the picture you've been pretending you didn't recognize? It's silent. It's inside your chest. I didn't cry. I opened numbers. Tab 1, handles. Ethan Cole photo, Ethan C, Cole bylight, LT visuals, Nick Turner, 6 more throwaways. Same syntax, same caption melody. Second-person intimacy that scales. You deserve to be seen. Tab 2, language. Eyes do the heavy lifting. Built your own staircase. Lisbon keeps me honest. Con men leave fingerprints in their phrasing. Tab 3, contacts. 21 women tagged across 2 continents. Coasts, capitals, artist neighborhoods, stories featuring them with ephemeral tenderness. Working with this genius today. Most weren't photographers. A handful bought his preset pack for $49. Affection, merchandised. I created a folder called Structure. He would respect that word. I exported screenshots, profiles, timestamps, cross-posts. I mapped the overlaps like a brand ecosystem, because that's what it was. I ran reverse image searches on his hero shots. 3 belonged to a stock model who should probably invoice the internet. Another lived on a UK wedding shooter's feed. One of his Lisbon edits was, in fact, Vaz, down to the dust line on the sensor. Ethan borrowed the way people borrow pens they never intend to return, assuming you won't ask. He should have known what I do for a living. I scrolled back to our first messages to audit my own optimism. Every time I asked to meet, he was in transit. Every time I asked to video chat during the day, he sent a photo of a half-packed suitcase and a caption about chasing light. In brand work, tension between promise and delivery is where you dig. In romance, it's where you rationalize. I bought time. When you realize you've been lied to, your first impulse wants to be dramatic. My second nature is strategic. I needed verification, not catharsis. He sent a long day studio photo at 3:17 p.m. GMT. I noted the light angle, the equipment list visible on a whiteboard, the gaffer tape pattern on the floor. I found the studio, Manchester, by its rental inventory page. Same stools, same psych radius. I booked it for an afternoon under a dummy email to confirm the room. It cost me $80 to prove something my gut had already tallied. He mentioned a payment link for collaboration holds. I clicked through. Stripe link, business name, L. Turner Creative Services. Company's house listed it as dormant, filings late. The signature on his contract template read L. Turner. Ethan Cole had a real name. The real name had a paper trail. The paper trail was messy. I built a second identity with the precision of a pitch deck. Maya Lane, travel content strategist. 200K followers that cost less than a weekend in Montauk. A grid of earth tones and airports. Captions that sounded confessional but revealed nothing. I bought a Manchester-adjacent SIM and a UK VoIP number. Overkill is a word people use when they don't like how thoroughly a woman has prepared. Maya DM'd LT Visuals. Scouting a photographer for a Europe travel brand launch. Quick call? I built a second identity with the precision of a pitch deck. Maya Lane, travel content strategist. 200K followers that cost less than a weekend in Montauk. A grid of earth tones and airports. Captions that sounded confessional but revealed nothing. I bought a Manchester-adjacent SIM and a UK VoIP number. Overkill is a word people use when they don't like how thoroughly a woman has prepared. Maya DM'd LT Visuals. Scouting a photographer for a Europe travel brand launch. Quick call? While Maya kept him entertained, Julia did the housekeeping. I cross-referenced his payment email with a handful of Shopify backends hawking the same preset pack. I scraped highlights where he tagged clients, then found those clients were him under different names. I wrote to 5 women from my contacts tab, whose DMs suggested money had changed hands. 3 replied within an hour. 1 attached a Western Union slip. Another sent me voice notes. His voice, the same lines, the same curated intimacy. I asked permission to use their evidence. I got it in writing. I assembled a drive, dates, amounts, aliases, screenshots with redacted handles, a simple index. I called the folder Anatomy. This wasn't a gotcha, it was a manual. After a week of setup, Maya proposed a Manhattan meeting to review creative direction with the client. A restaurant Nathan would recognize as a signal. He asked who would be there. Brand, me, you, she replied. They notice what other people miss. He took the bait. Of course he did. Before I closed my laptop, I opened a clean document and typed a headline for the essay I would publish later. How Romantic Fraud Scales in the Age of Personal Brands. I outlined bullet points the way I outline keynotes. Problem, mechanism, mitigation. Emotion makes people click. Structure makes them safer next time. 09:56. The night before the meeting, I slept like a CFO the quarter after a clean audit. Not because I enjoy this sort of thing, because nothing quiets a room like replacing guesses with facts. In the morning, I packed light, lipstick, a printed vendor form, a folded page with a QR code linking to the drive, and a composure I earned the hard way. At the host stand, I gave Maya's name. At the table, I gave my own. Nathan, I said when he arrived, letting the name land with the weight of a balance sheet. Sit. He sat. His eyes asked for the script I would not provide. He reached for charm. I handed him evidence. Evidence. You lied to me, I said plainly. About your work, your life, your name. But mostly, you lied to yourself. He opened his mouth to begin the story he tells when cornered. I set my phone down between us, screen bright with the life he thought he'd built out of other people's attention. The recording light stayed on, not for virality, for accuracy. Let's do this cleanly. And that's where we stayed suspended. A man curated for the internet, and a woman built for the aftermath, with a city listening the way it always does, hungry for a headline, unaware of the spreadsheet underneath. What came next wasn't rage. It was process. He didn't touch the phone again. His fingers twitched once, then flattened on the tablecloth. Crisis management by muscle memory. Julia, I don't know what you think you found. I don't think, I said. I verify. Across the room, the waiter performed the small mercy of ignoring us. You built a portfolio of women, I continued. Not clients, not friends, leads. He blinked, calculating angles. I was networking. You were harvesting, I said calmly. Different skill set. That was the moment I realized he still believed this could be negotiated. He thought this was about feelings. It never was. It was about infrastructure. The night after I'd first caught him, I'd opened a bottle of Sancerre and treated my heartbreak like an audit. Each woman was a column, each interaction, a row. Pattern recognition is romantic when you're in marketing. It's surgical when you've been lied to. He recycled compliments, timestamps, and photos. He changed only the names and the time zones. Every campaign needs automation. His funneling was flawless. He'd target creative women with a touch of loneliness and disposable income, the ones who believed talent could be bartered for intimacy. He'd promise collaboration, charge a small booking deposit, then disappear. Some relationships lasted weeks, some months. Mine was heading for its second quarter. By the third glass of wine, I had a map pinned with red dots across the Atlantic. I wasn't the only one he exported. The pattern was too elegant to be accidental. He wasn't a chaotic scammer. He was a brand operator without ethics. The difference is design. At 2 a.m., I sent myself an email. Phase 2, collect narratives. It looked clinical on the screen. It was self-preservation disguised as project management. Over the next week, I met 2 of the other women on Zoom calls. They were smart, funny, and embarrassed. One was a graphic designer in Boston, another a musician in Leeds. We laughed too loud in the gaps between humiliation. It's strange how comfort returns the moment you realize you're not the outlier, but the data. Together, we documented his pattern. Love bomb phase, playlist plus poetry plus praise. Logistics phase, send deposit to secure shoot date. Vanishing act, client emergency, sick relative, bad Wi-Fi. He'd even reused playlists, same order, same cover image. Spotify had become his love letter template. I wrote a summary for myself. Con artists aren't creative, they're consistent. That sentence would anchor the article later. By day, I worked client strategy. By night, I ran forensics. My apartment looked like a cross between an agency war room and a crime lab. Sticky notes, spreadsheets, Zoom recordings. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent my days protecting brands from bad actors, and my nights unmasking one. Every system wants feedback. Nathan's came as a DM from Maya. He'd sent a mock brief he wanted approved by the client. It was a PDF riddled with stolen work. Metadata listed his laptop's serial number. He'd tagged himself in his own crime scene. I filed that under Evidence A. Evidence B was the bank trail from the Leeds musician's transfer. The recipient matched his Stripe ID. Evidence C was the pattern of payments under $50, small enough to avoid attention, large enough to add up. If you ever want to know who someone really is, don't read their posts, read their receipts. The hardest part was not anger, it was curation. I had to decide how much of him to show the world. Expose too little, and he survives. Expose too much and you become the villain for hurting a man publicly. Reputation is a gendered asset. I decided on precision. Enough to be useful, not enough to look vengeful. At my agency, we call it strategic disclosure. It's how you drop truth without losing tone. I built a timeline infographic so clean it could double as a conference slide. One of the women suggested posting everything on Reddit. Tempting, but amateurs throw matches. I design controlled burns. I chose the press route, a tech reporter I trusted. She specialized in online fraud and had a nose for human texture. We'd worked together on a crisis campaign 2 years ago. I sent her the deck under NDA. She called within the hour. Julia, this isn't just a scam. It's a case study. Exactly. We agreed on timing. I would confront him first. She would publish after. Sequence matters. Stories die without structure. That's why I booked the restaurant. That's why I chose that lighting. If he tried to spin another version, the footage would outlast him. He was a content creator. I was about to turn him into content. Back in the present, he's still pleading optics. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. People ghost all the time. You took their money, I remind him. Small amounts. Small enough that no one would chase you. That's the math of cowardice. He leans forward. You can ruin my career, but what does that make you? Efficient, I say. Outside, sirens blur against traffic. Inside, the room has gone quiet the way rooms do when the ending is writing itself. I stand, leave a folded paper on the table. A QR code links to his catalog of aliases, payment records, and victim testimony. This is the file the reporter will publish this week, I say. You have 3 days to issue statements to every woman you took from. Own it while you still can. He starts to speak. I cut him off. You once told me you notice what other people miss. Try noticing consequences. I walk out without looking back. The air outside is colder than the wine I left unfinished. On the subway home, my reflection in the window doesn't look victorious. It looks awake. At my apartment, I open Slack to check on a client campaign, then upload the final deck to the reporter. Subject line: Truth, final draft. days later, the article drops. Headline: The Catfish Who Branded Love. Subhead: How a UK-US scammer built a dating app funnel and met his match. My name isn't in it. It doesn't need to be. His is. The story trends for 48 hours straight. Every alias de-indexed by Monday. Payment processors freeze his accounts. A minor podcast calls it the perfect digital karma. I call it compliance. The Leeds musician texts. He emailed an apology, said he's reevaluating. I told him to evaluate lawyers. I laugh for the first time in weeks. Still, I don't sleep. Not because of guilt, because of momentum. Once you've seen how a system works, it's hard not to improve it. That's when I decide to build something bigger. A training module for women in creative industries. How to audit affection online. It's part cybersecurity, part psychology, entirely necessary. If revenge burns clean, impact builds quiet. The last thing I receive from Nathan is a text sent from a number not in service hours later. You didn't have to destroy me. I type and delete a dozen replies before sending none. Sometimes the most elegant response is absence. I close my laptop, walk to the window, and watch the city blink its apologies in neon. He wanted to teach women to believe in a fiction. I taught him to read terms and conditions. What's next isn't revenge, it's growth. But growth always starts with a clean exit. The internet forgets fast, but first it feasts. For 3 days, my phone is a pulse. Mentions, DMs, interview requests. The reporter keeps her promise about me. No name, only structure. But the women recognize themselves in the timeline. We build a group chat. Someone calls it the Light Chasers, half joke, half anthem. Inside it, 21 voices ping through the night. One posts, just realized he used my cat's name as his Wi-Fi password. Another, he promised to shoot my portfolio after Lisbon Fashion Week. There was no Lisbon Fashion Week. We laugh more than we cry. Laughter is lighter to upload. By Monday, agencies are citing the article in risk briefings. Catfishing as brand erosion, one headline reads. It's strange watching pain turn into PowerPoint, but it's also proof. Structure works. My CEO calls me into his office. Julia, he says, sliding a printout of the piece across the desk. Did you have anything to do with this? I had something to do with preventing it from happening again, I answer. He studies me for a long time, then nods. Good. Build us a framework. That's how revenge became product development. For weeks, my job shifts from campaign launches to authenticity audits. We start vetting influencer partners the way banks vet clients. It feels ironic. My trauma turned into a compliance department. But there's comfort in measurable impact. Late nights, I work alone in the conference room. The city hums below, equal parts promise and repetition. I think about Nathan less as a person and more as a case study. His face, once cinematic in my mind, is now just a blurred thumbnail. Every few days, another woman writes to thank me. They use the same phrase. You gave me back my sanity. But sanity isn't something you lose. It's something people convince you to doubt. The Leeds musician sends me a new song. It opens with the line, I met a ghost in a gallery. I play it twice, then close the file before it can hurt. One evening, an email from a brand consultancy in London lands in my inbox. Subject, Keynote Inquiry, Digital Trust Summit. They want me to speak about online authenticity and emotional fraud. The irony isn't lost on me. My first major public appearance born from a private humiliation. I accept. Preparation steadies me. Slides are safer than feelings. At the summit, I step onto a stage ringed with LED light and the smell of new tech money. The audience expects a neat cautionary tale. I give them a system diagram instead. How affection becomes data. They take notes. They nod at the right times. Afterwards, one executive tells me, You turned heartbreak into intellectual property. It's meant as praise. It sounds like prophecy. That night, I walk along the Thames alone. The water reflects the city like an algorithm, distorted but convincing. I think about all the ways a person reinvents themselves after being rewritten. You start as a victim, become an analyst, and if you're lucky, end as your own subject matter expert. Back in New York, I find my story everywhere and nowhere. LinkedIn posts about resilience. Podcasts on digital ethics, quoting lines that were mine before editing, softened them. Even my agency launches a course called Brand Safety in the Age of Intimacy. They ask me to narrate the promo video. I say yes. The paycheck feels cleaner than closure. 2 months later, a courier leaves an envelope at reception, UK postmark. Inside, a single flash drive and a note in unfamiliar handwriting. You should see what your article started. The drive contains a folder of screenshots from another scammer. Same model, different name, already exposed by one of the light chasers. I smile. Systems scale. So can integrity. I reply to the group chat. We're trendsetters. Someone sends a gif of fireworks. Someone else says, "Justice looks good on us." For the first time, I don't feel like I'm managing a crisis. I'm managing momentum. Weeks pass. Work stabilizes. Life returns to an approximation of normal. Early gym, late coffee, the comfortable hum of competence. But sometimes between meetings, I think about Nathan's last message. You didn't have to destroy me. I wonder if he truly believes that. Men like him think exposure is destruction because secrecy was their ecosystem. But sunlight isn't cruelty. It's correction. The journalist emails me one last time. Update. He's pleaded guilty to fraud and identity misuse. Sentencing next month. No need for comment. I don't reply. There's nothing left to add. I archive the message, breathe once, and feel something close to stillness. In the evenings, I start teaching a small online course for freelancers about ethical marketing. Each week, I add a slide quietly referencing him without ever saying his name. Transparency saves time. It becomes my mantra, my philosophy deck, if you will. People keep asking if I'd ever date again. I tell them the truth. Yes, but slower. What I don't say is that I've already learned to enjoy the part before the introduction, the solitude where no one's lying yet. One morning, while preparing slides for another summit, I stumble upon the old spreadsheet labeled structure. For a second, I consider deleting it. Then I remember what it really is. Not a record of him, but a record of how clear I can be when someone tries to confuse me. I back it up to the cloud instead. At the next conference, a young woman waits after my talk. She's nervous, holding her phone like a confession. He's not the same guy, she says quickly, but it's the same pattern. What should I do? I take her phone, glance at the profile, charming bio, familiar tone. I hand it back. Start a spreadsheet, I tell her. She smiles, unsure whether I'm joking. I'm not. Later, in my hotel room, I open the window. The city breathes. I think about how revenge was never the destination. It was the catalyst. What I wanted wasn't to ruin a man. I wanted to rebuild the algorithm of trust, starting with myself. Justice, I've learned, isn't loud. It's just the sound of the story finishing the way it should.